What's up, y'all? I'm Gabe, and this is my review for Talk to Me and why I think it's easily going to be the best horror movie of the year. Safe to say, in the past 9 months of the year, even though there's so many other good horror movies like Megan or Infinity Pool, they're just nowhere near as good as this movie. Especially with how surprisingly this movie was made with just a bunch of Australian YouTubers who've definitely done a good job at removing the stigma that YouTubers should just stay in their own lane. Somehow A24 keeps pumping out these bangers, and it makes sense because when they say that they'll actually pay their writers and actors a livable wage, most of their best writers and actors will subsequently flock to them. Now, in starting this review, the opener was actually fantastic. In just 3 minutes, they were able to get my adrenaline pumping with a great jump scare and twist, which already had locked my attention from the beginning. Then, when the whole gang actually gets together to try out the hand for the first time, those scenes were genuinely creepy as hell. First off, the costume design of the different monsters, and even the makeup design for when she gets possessed, is fantastic. It really makes you think that she is possessed, because a lot of movies, horror movies especially, they love to just take the person and make them make weird, funny faces like Smile or Truth or Dare, and that can only get so scary. You need actual makeup to do that. And the design of the hand itself makes it one of the best set design pieces ever. On top of that, I'm assuming that because of the fact that a bunch of YouTubers directed this movie, they had to hire relatively new and upcoming actors because of their low budget. And they do a fantastic job at portraying the actual friend group and what a friend group would act and talk like. One movie that I reviewed earlier this year was The Blackening, and one of my biggest problems with it was that the group didn't feel like friends at all. They felt like just a bunch of random college people who hung out for like a year or so, then came back 10 years later to hang out, so it never felt really realistic. With this movie, it feels like even though the main girl is singled out in most of the scenes at the beginning, it still feels like everybody else knows each other and is friends with each other. And the way they start letting her into the friend group after she's like starts becoming less introverted, it just felt genuinely realistic. I also really like the themes that the hand lays out in where most of the teenage friend group starts turning to either light drugs or alcohol because they get bored around waiting, and this sort of acts as their new fix. It's also very similar to the Ouija board game, in which tons of people would gather around where you tap into some potential supernatural spirits and see what happens, and I really like that aspect of it. And I kind of glanced over it, but the acting chops from most of these actors for quote unquote relatively unknown people are fantastic. Especially the main girl in the story. She really does a good job at like moving her body, contorting it in ways that it looks like she's being possessed, and she even is still able to put in a few funny quips throughout the movie to lighten up the mood so it's not tense throughout the entire movie. Furthermore, this is one of the first horror movies that I've seen in a while that is actually horrific and scary to watch. And that just doesn't just involve a billion jump scares every 5 seconds. I also really enjoyed how the main character's grief was portrayed and how much depth that character actually had in the first place. The only way to make the events in this movie seem believable would be if the grief that is being manipulated by the entity in the first place seems real, and this movie really makes it feel real. On top of that, the cinematography is also fantastic. A lot of people can't really nail that horror editing down style especially when they use rapid camera movements and cuts, but I feel like because these guys are YouTubers, they have the edge in that aspect. They're used to captivating audiences for minutes at a time, because in most YouTube videos, if you don't have that audience captivated in the first 2 minutes, they're going to click off the video. And because they have lots of views, I think they have like 10 million subs on YouTube, they know how to captivate the audience, especially throughout this hour and a half long film. Also, the scores of the music are paired perfectly with the actions that happen during this movie, especially its main song, Le Mans, which is not only beautiful, but it's also at the same time scary because of the place that it's being played in. On top of that, during this watch, I even felt squeamish during many bits of it, which is a first for me in a while, because a lot of the horror movies, like I said earlier, that have come out this year are just like have a billion jump scares put into it to the point where you don't even get scared. Someone's just jumping out of a window or something and it scares you, but it's not really a scare. It's just you flinching. It's not even. It's just so bad the way most movies do it nowadays. So this movie was kind of like a breath of fresh air. And on top of that, this movie's been greenlit for a sequel, which is appropriately titled Talk to Me with the number 2 instead of 2. And it makes sense because some of this movie's ending is up to interpretation. And without spoiling it, the next people to inevitably touch the hand are going to be buckled up for a wild ride. And I can't wait to see it. And that's my review for Talk to Me. If you're still here, thanks for watching, and have a great rest of your day.